I think somebody that's looking too much to the franchisor, they still want to be an employee. Like if you want to be an employee, don't get into franchising. Like you are a business owner. And so don't have that employee mindset, have that ownership mindset within the franchising system.
Representing Franchise Secrets, Erik Von Horn.
What's up, man?
What's going on?
I was wondering, like, how do I mean, I know how to get the fake backgrounds back
Yeah.
here, but I don't know how to get the
How's
wind
my green
blowing in the
screen
trees.
look? How's my green screen look?
Looks almost real.
Does it look legit? Does the blue
Yeah.
sky look real?
Yeah. I
Nice.
like it. I need to come visit your second home sometime. We need to get a Front Street meeting out there.
No, man. I'm all for it. You
We
know,
just
we're
need to get
still kind of hurricane hurricane back in October created
messed it
some
up, and we need to get
challenges.
Jim. We need to get Jim on a plane. That's the hardest thing. Hurricanes are fine, but getting Jim on a plane, that's not easy.
Yeah, we got to get Jimmy down here. No, it's great, man.
Let's talk
It's the
today.
happy place. Yeah.
I love
Let's
it.
do it.
Well, then let's talk about some happy stuff. I want to talk about like how franchisees can get on the fast track to success. And there's so many things that franchisors can do to help franchisees or hurt franchisees. But today we are focusing on the franchisee and how you, as a franchisee, can get on that fast track to like higher revenue, quicker break even and more profitability. So there's like a formula that the top franchisees seem to get right over and over again as they are top franchisees. Why don't we back up just a little bit, Jeff? Because people are probably thinking, great guys, why we know that you are, with Front Street and you help franchisors, you advise franchisors, you're talking to private equity all the time. You're doing all of these things that don't seem to be at the franchisee level. But you and I, we started in this franchising world as franchisees, and you've operated locations after as a franchisor and a franchisee. So give a little bit of like, why should somebody listen to you, Jeff? Why should somebody be listening to you as a franchisee right now? What's your background as a franchisee?
Many moons ago, I mean, people always talk about like how'd you get into franchising? Everybody has a story of how they got into franchising. Like where did you come in? Where did you land? And for me, it was as a franchisee. I was this was like over 20 years ago. I was a young man back then. The business that I ended up becoming a franchisee of was a seasonal type business. So I kept my full-time job, and really kind of jumped in. I really kind of jumped in pretty like head first. There was some friends of mine that were already franchisees in the system, and so that was kind of neat, kind of seeing how they had gotten in a year before me, and kind of seeing how successful they had been. Um, but yeah, I mean, got in as a franchisee, and then throughout the last 20 years, I've really kind of been on every single angle inside of franchising. Whether that, and then part of that's, on the other side, on the franchisor side. At the end of the day, it's a we business, right? It's really all about the brand. So the brand is going to be made up of lots of pieces. Yes, the brand is made up of a franchisor, the brand's made up of franchisees. Then there's people that are in-sourced that work at corporate. Then there's, outsourced vendors, suppliers, agencies. At the end of the day, it's kind of like it's really all of a we thing.
So we need to figure out how we need to tell people like as this whole we thing, because not I would say most franchisees listen to this are not in that we type thing, we stage of franchise. There's different stages in franchising. I've covered that before. We're not going to cover it now. But that's like the ultimate goal is to get into this place of it's a we thing. Like you are working with that franchisor, or that franchisor is working with you, and it's very synergistic. But there to get there, there's lots of bumps and ups and downs, just like in business, period. And I think that's one of the things I think franchisees uh, need to understand, I wish I had understood it more, it's my business. I have the franchisor, but at the end of the day, if I'm going to be successful, like I've got to take on full responsibility to be successful. Now, the franchisor can help or hurt my success, but I've seen the mindset of franchisees just be like, I think the most successful franchisees, and I could name like 100 of them right now. They're like, they're taking ownership of it. It's me. It's my business. It's my local market. It's me doing the marketing. It's me working with my employees in the store, in the location, in my market, day in and day out. That's the difference between a successful franchisee and an underperformer. Those that are not, not happy, not doing well. It's like they take full ownership over that location, over their success, versus kind of a more employee mindset. And this is kind of the first time I've said that. Like, I think somebody that's looking too much to the franchisor, they still want to be an employee. Like, if you want to be an employee, don't get into franchising. Like, you are a business owner. And so don't have that employee mindset, have that ownership mindset within the franchising system. What do you think?
Yeah, you don't want to buy a job. You didn't buy a job, right? I mean, I think that most people get into franchising or business ownership or entrepreneurship, whether it's a franchise or not, because they want a level of independence. They want to build equity in something, right? If if you're working for a business as a W-2 employee, in most cases you're not building equity. You can be a highly compensated person. I mean, you can make seven figures being an employee, but like you're really helping a business grow equity. I think like that's really what we talk about is like, what are we playing for here? Like for me, I want to build something. I'm a builder. Like that's just my mentality. And so like now when I was a franchisee, that was my mentality. I wanted to build and scale my business. As a franchisor, as a builder, that's just my mindset, right? Is I wanted to build and scale my brand. Like I've been an entrepreneur pretty much all my life. I only had one job out of college. That's it. So like I've been self-employed, building businesses for since 19. I think I started my first business in 1996. It's like I'm up on 30 years, which is crazy. But at the end of the day, like for me, it was always like my mindset is I want to build something. I want to build the brand. But ultimately, like I was trying to build equity in the brand. Cash flow translates into equity, yeah, but like I'm trying to build something. So as a franchisee, now I am more of a strategy, vision. Um, I like to think that I'm good with people. And I have some strengths that I can leverage as in a business as a franchisee. That's what I did. But then I also understood like there were a lot of pieces that maybe I wasn't great at, and I needed maybe an integrator for some things, or or there was just other pieces of the business. So I've always kind of been a part of like partnerships as well, and trying to kind of bring people together that as one we can kind of win. But at the end of the day, like I think a big piece of today's conversation is probably going to be like around like mindset, because like as a franchisee, like my mindset is always like I want to build. I want to build on my customer base. I want to build a team. I want to build multiple locations. Like I was always kind of like in the brick and mortar business myself. And as a franchisee, that's what our business was. And I wanted to build and scale that.
Attention, franchisors and franchisees. There are two really important resources that I want to share with you that will help you avoid costly mistakes and increase your enterprise value. The first is our free Facebook group. It's a community that has over 4,000 franchisees and franchisors in it. When somebody asks a question, they get honest and authentic answers from multiple perspectives. You can join the group for free over at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. The second resource I want to share with you is if you're a franchisee and you want to be around a community of successful Zs and other brands and in other industries, this is why I created the Franchisee Mastermind. If you want access to the best single and multi-unit owners to know what they're doing, or if you want to be around other multi-brand owners, then you'll want to check out my Franchisee Mastermind. The reason why people join is they want access to my Rolodex, my connections, to each other. They want a shortcut success, both short-term and long-term. Links will be in the show notes or at scalablefranchise.com. Yeah, I think you had a great point. Like, as a franchisee, just like the franchisor is doing, they're building something that has enterprise value, building something that has equity, building something sellable. As a franchisee, it's the same thing. 20 plus years ago, I was doing this. Like, the founder of the brand that I was with would always talk about this. Yeah, everyone here is thinking about just cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. People need to be thinking about equity, building equity, and not just think about it like, oh, I'm going to be able to sell something someday, but how do you build it to sell? And it goes along the lines of what you were just saying. You've got to focus on your strengths and you hire for your weaknesses. It's not just about buying into a franchise that says they are semi-absentee or an executive model. All that like anything can be semi-absentee if you hire the right people to do the work that you're not doing. Like, that's what semi-absentee is. That's what executive is. So you can hire more people to be able to scale, and so you can focus on your strengths. Jeff and I, our strengths are strategy, less operational stuff, more strategy, people, marketing, sales, things like that. So we hire for our weaknesses, focus on our strengths, and if you continue to do that, then you're building enterprise value. You're building something sellable that has equity. And I think that's where mindset of franchisees just get it wrong. They come from an employee background, a lot of them, and they just they just think they need to work more, work harder versus start making some key strategic hires and thinking about building equity. So anything else to add to that, or do you want to move on?
There's a lot of terms out there, right? Like owner operator, semi-absentee, executive model, like there's a lot of that stuff. Like at the end of the day, like the as a franchisee and as a franchisor, I've always kind of been a team builder, right? So I was never really kind of like, I guess what somebody would say is like the owner operator. But on both sides of being a franchisee or being a franchisor of many brands, I was always like the number one consumer of that piece. Like I always I there was never a part of the business that I didn't understand. I might not have been behind the cash register, but I knew everything about every inch of the finances of this business and every inch of like what it takes to hire the right people. Now, I didn't do necessarily the hiring. I had a manager with anything that I've ever had. But like I needed to effectively communicate on the avatar of type of people that we want to hire. Like at the end of the day, the buck stops with me. It's not just I hire a manager and I'm on autopilot. Like I always I I'm not necessarily a marketer, but I understand how marketing works. I understand how customer acquisition works, and I understand the math behind it. And so like I think it's really important too to like what is your role in the business? And whether it's owner operator or semi absentee or executive or whatever, it does it to me it does it none of those things really matter. It You have to know every single thing that's going on with your business at any given time in order to like help it operate better. Or to find out like who do I need to hire to fix this challenge.
I think you kind of touched on something right there, and I'd like to, hit that as another kind of separate point is, you knew the finances. You knew some of these other aspects of the business that you weren't doing, the types of employees to hire, the finances. I'd probably also throw KPIs in there, key metrics, and tracking them from, so you need to understand cash flow management. You need to start understanding customer acquisition cost, your break even point, anything that is an important metric in your business that needs to be monitored so you can make decisions off of the numbers, not just of how you feel that day. And I know we do that with our brands at Front Street. We have KPIs. We do that with the brands at the corporate level, and then we do it with brands for their franchisees. Like there are KPIs that they should be tracking, should be measuring. And we talk about it even in the mastermind. We talk about that with the brands that are in the mastermind. In the sales process, from a franchisor getting getting leads to closing franchisors and all of that, it's all tracked. So when I talk about KPIs, this is stuff that Jeff and I do every week. We're going over our KPIs. This is what I do. I'm an investor into a franchisee, a group of franchisees. What I do as a passive investor is I review KPIs. I want to see leading and lagging indicators. So I think successful franchisees monitor the KPIs. What say you, Mr. Herr?
What drives the business forward? Obviously, we're always talking about franchising. That's the world that we're in. But like, whether your business is a franchise or you're talking about a business outside of franchising, when you're looking at a business and you're understanding how it performs, it's like what are the levers that need to be pulled to push the business forward? How do I optimize the business? How do I get customers today? How do I get more customers tomorrow? How do I make sure that I deliver a 5-star experience to that customer? How do I get them back as a customer? How do I retain them as a customer? Like there's metrics. Every business has metrics around that piece. Like that's really critical to understand. Like, and as a business owner at a franchisee level, like that's the fun part. Once you figure out the math, then it's just plugging the math into a worksheet and getting all the answers, right? So, but like that's for me as a franchisee, the first thing that I would want to do every single morning is let's take a look at yesterday's performance. Let's see how we are week. Let's see how the week's going. Let's see how the month's going. Let's compare this month to last month. Are we up or are we down? And like really diving into those key pieces of the business that like where are we winning and losing? Like that's the first, and every business has some kind of operating system that you can pull all of this data from, right? And the franchisor should be able to point out to you like what are the key drivers of the business? Where do we get our customers from? Where can we get more customers like that? Like um and so yeah, I mean that's as a franchisee, like that's what I want to dive into at the beginning of the day is like how do we perform yesterday? How are we performing this week? How are we performing this month? How are we performing this quarter? Based on like the metrics around what drives the business forward.
This is small business 101. Like, this is stuff that I did, and I'm sure you did when we were both in the tax industry and competing in, companies 20 years ago. Like, we would wake up and look at we so just to be clear, the franchisor would give us certain things to be able to look as at KPIs, and then I would do something at my each office. I had to Google a Google spreadsheet back then that they would a form that they would input numbers into. How many people signed in, like, you know, physically signed in to get on the waiting list or to become a customer that came in to get their taxes done. I wanted to know that how many tax returns we did. So all of that was done outside of what the corporate office was doing. And I didn't care. I never once thought, oh, I need the franchisor to figure out some type of tool to help me when the customers come and sign in, like to track that, because that was important to me. Then you could hear real time like how they heard about you. Like they had so many things for us, but then I did things outside of the franchisor because that's what you do as a franchisee that's successful. You just do things that work. You don't wait for the franchisor to create everything for you. If you need to do more stuff with marketing, more stuff with sales, track different KPIs that they can't give you, then you just do it. This like any business owner should be doing the same thing. This is small business 101.
Yeah, that's really genius right there. That something just popped up that I was when you were talking. When you're looking at like a P&L of a business, right? And you look at the revenue. The revenue actually happened, right? The sale was consummated and it hits the books. But what you were just talking about was I want to track like how many people came in and signed in, and then how many of those actually converted to an actual paying customer. Because maybe some people had to wait too long and they left, right? So you're thinking like, how can I optimize that experience? Your goal, what you just mentioned was, I want, I want to perform the service for 100% of the people that signed in, right? That's what I just heard. And so if you saw that 10 people signed in yesterday, but only 9 completed the service, what I'm thinking of is how did I lose that one, right? How do I get it to 100%? So
Well, finish that thought, and then I got a comment on that.
yeah, so like there's lots of KPIs that show up like in the P&Ls themselves once that revenue is booked. But then there's the whole sales funnel piece, right? Like, where am I losing customers that I should have captured? A lot of businesses have like a call center attached to them, right? And so somebody calls in and says, I want the service. I think it's really important to track, like, we obviously want to book that revenue. And so the P&L is going to show what revenue was booked. But the real opportunity is where did we lose customers from? They went to Google and they found our phone number and they called and they wanted the service, but we actually didn't book the revenue. How do we optimize that, right? We anytime that we're paying for ads, if somebody responds, we want to convert 100% of those people to a customer, right? And so there's a lot of metrics just around the actual sales funnel before a sale's actually consummated and it hits the P&L.
And this is stuff that we were doing outside of the franchisor. The franchisor would catch up with a lot of the stuff, and the franchisor was ahead of a lot of this stuff. Here's something else to think about, Jeff, because you were saying we want 100% of our of the customers that walk in. I think what you're really saying is we want 100% of our right customers, because some of those are going to be wrong customers that you don't want, and some of them are going to be right customers. So you want to get rid of the wrong customers and keep the right customers. What do I mean? Some of these customers, they did not want to pay the amount that you're charging. And I would say in any
Uh-huh.
business, like there's a price that you charge and you're going to be worth
That's
it for the
right.
service that you're doing. But even in that, having the right pricing, you'll start to understand, because you don't want every customer necessarily. You want the right customer that values your service and is going to pay for your service, unless you're just on the low end and you're not competing on price. But let's say you do have a premium price or an average price. You want to understand, are they leaving because the price is too high? How many are leaving because the price is too high? Well, if there's too many, our price might actually be too high. But if it's only 1%, your price might actually be too low. But the other thing is, if customers, because you mentioned, what if they're waiting too long? Like, you don't want anybody to leave because they're waiting too long. So then you start making decisions like, do I need more chairs? Do I need some toys for the kids? Do I need movies in
Right.
there? Do I need snacks in there? What can I do to help them be able to wait longer? And so there's, these KPIs directly impact what you do to keep customers and have the right customers in your business. So I'm glad you kind of picked up on that. So we went deeper into that. But all this happens because you're tracking a KPI. All right. I think another one is marketing, community engagement. And I think this is where the best franchisees, they take it upon themselves to engage in the community. I think I've said it on the podcast before. Everyone thinks Orange Theory, they did so well for so long, and their franchisees and area developers exited with high multiples of cash flow, when a lot of buyers and private equity was coming in to buy them out. I also know, even though that was happening, even though they had a very strong brand recognition, the best franchisees were pounding the streets. They were still putting orange bikes places when they probably didn't need to, but they were doing it because that's community engagement. That's how you have an amazing grand opening. You could have a really good grand opening, I'm guessing, with Orange Theory back in the day, like a really good one without doing too much, or you can have an amazing one with still continuing on the things that helped you be successful early on as a franchisee. So a lot of emerging franchisees with emerging brands, like, I think one of the X factors you, and I think one of the things, that a lever that you can pull, is community engagement. Get involved with the community. local marketing, neighborhood marketing, guerrilla marketing, anything that you can do to have a strong grand opening and continue to have customers coming in your door. But it starts at the local level. The franchisee can't help necessarily with that. Jeff, am I on or off base?
You're totally you're yeah, you're right. That's the bullseye, man. Like you're the chief promotional officer of your own business. I mean, that's you got to take that stance. You have to be the chief storyteller of your business. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean you got to get in your car and go knock on doors all day long and sit there and try to tell people one on one like why they should use you, right? But like you have to take advantage of like, where can you tell your story? Where can you tell your company story? What you do? Sometimes it could just happen like when you actually are interacting with the customer because you want them to the experience that they got with the service or the product that they bought from you, you want them to be able to take that out to others. But there's no question about it. Like you have to be able to you have to be able to tell others what you are doing and what you are building and what's compelling about it, right? Like you have to be the chief storyteller of the business and you have to network. Here's a hack. So a lot of businesses that we work with, our portfolio brands, we talk about collaborating with other like-minded business owners, right? Because I do think that for some franchisees, there is this fear of like, where do I start? Like, okay, so I need to reach out into my community. Like, where do I start? I would start with like-minded people. You're a small business owner. There are an infinite amount of small business owners that are in the same exact shoes that want to do the same exact thing. Like they're in their head, they're thinking, I need to network with other people in my business, right? So I'll give you some examples. So like let's start with like service, right? Like let's say you're in the restoration business and you're a small business owner in the restoration business, right? There are people when there's water. So we were talking about hurricane at the beginning of this thing, right? So like hurricane happens, we got some water in the house, we need to get a restoration company in, right? So the restoration company comes in and they get all the water out of my house. Well, the restoration company didn't do it. Now the next thing is I needed somebody that was going to take off all the baseboards and repair all the baseboards, right? I need a construction crew, right? Because this restoration company that I used, they didn't physically do that piece. So I ended up finding a construction crew that came in. So if I'm the business owner that's in the restoration business, I'm a small business owner, and I'm looking to network with other small business owners that I can collaborate with and maybe share referrals with. Like I would reach out to people that specialize in construction after restoration happens, right? The next thing is I had a company that had to get all my furniture out and I had to dry clean some like sofas and stuff, right? There are content companies that they do that after there is water or smoke or restoration services. I had to get that company and there was a small company in Florida that did that. So if I'm the restoration company, like I would network with the small businesses that like clean upholstery, right? And they want to get to know me because I'm in the restoration business. I'm at the tip of the spear. So I can refer to them and they can refer to me. Now we have other businesses that are in let's switch gears. Let's go to like brick and mortar businesses. We've always been involved in businesses around health, wellness, beauty, and fitness, right? So if let's say we've got a couple of portfolio brands in the beauty space right now. And so I'm a small business owner and I have a beauty brand. I'm providing a service. There are other small businesses in health, wellness, and beauty and fitness that have franchisees that are in the same exact situation that I am. They want to grow and scale their business, and we have a like-minded customer. So it's so easy to be able to reach out to them and say, hey, I'm a small business owner. Here's the service that I provide. I noticed you are 3 doors down, or you're across the street. Your customer's pretty similar to ours. We don't really compete, we complement each other. Let's collaborate on something, right? Like, that's, to me, to some people, that seems like that might be a mountain. To me, it's kind of a molehill. And I'm looking at it from the perspective of, I know that it could create some fear and anxiety for me to like have to walk across the street and talk to that small business owner, but they have the same fear and anxiety of walking across the street to talk to me. We have the same customer. We have complementing services. Like, we're not really competing, but there's an opportunity for us to get to know each other. They have a small business, like, but it's not just from the customer perspective, right? Maybe it's like we can also network on around employees. Like, how do you go about finding employees for your business, right? And being able to share those ideas around human resources, or like, what events are you looking to do this year? What events are you going to do this year that already exist in the community? You might want to you might be putting up a booth. Maybe I go and put up a booth right next to you, right? But the point of where I'm going here with this big run-on sentence is, identify that you're a small business owner. What other small businesses um, are 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 also trying to attract the same type of customer? I gave you the restoration example. I gave you a beauty business example. There are almost an infinite amount of small business owners that all want to grow and scale their business. And these are people that are easy to network with. And hopefully, like, you can see it from the perspective that anybody that you would ask to network with or collaborate with, right? To share referrals with, they are looking to do the exact same thing. And so, like, probably they will exhale and say, oh my God, I was waiting. I've been meaning to connect with you as well. Right. When you think about like business, what's BNI, like Business Network International, like, you can go into a group where everybody kind of like, everybody can share, like, they all have the same type of customer. And they put you in a group where there's 10 different small business owners that all have opportunities to take advantage of. They all have challenges they want to overcome, and they have a like-minded customer. When we say that you have to get out into the community, like, that's where I would start. I would literally start with other small business owners that are a part of this service chain with 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 like what my business offers. Like, on the restoration side, I would meet with plumbers, I would meet with construction people, I would meet with people that clean upholstery, like, and because we literally can refer people to each other, and they're trying to grow and scale their business, and so am I. They have the same challenges with their business that I have with mine, so why not network with these folks? And the more you do that, the better off you are.
So practically speaking, like, what do you do with just what Jeff gave you? One, you could take this YouTube, use like recall.ai, take the whole transcript and put it into chat GPT and say, give me a plan, basically. And that will give you a plan. What I would also do is I would um, email or put in your franchise portal somewhere where you have access to all the franchisees, and saying who is reaching out to neighboring businesses and working with them from a marketing standpoint. Who's doing that? And then you'll find out there's 5 or 10 or 20. What are you doing? How are you doing it? And put all that together, and then have a plan of attack. Let's say nobody's doing anything. Let's say that's crickets out there. Then what I would do is I would make it a KPI for me to go and visit 10 new businesses a day. So at the end of the week, you visit 50 new businesses and you've just built a relationship with them. And then some of those are going to actually turn into something more meaningful. And then you do that, a few months later, you've talked to a lot of different business owners. You've probably also met some managers in these locations that you're like, they would be a great manager and they might be unhappy where they are. But that's where I would start. And so the other thing that I would say, we're talking about you as the franchisee, the franchise owner right now. The thing that I would do is make sure I hire a manager, my main manager over whatever it is, a truck, a location, and I would make sure that they are relationship driven uh, uh, manager that wants to go out and talk to people versus wants to hide behind the desk and have everything come to them. And I've made this mistake. This is speaking from experience of doing the wrong thing. So you hire that right manager who wants to do that. It will then they can do the same thing. And now you're reaching out to twice as many. So I think I think so many people hire the wrong manager. They're looking for someone that can just, sit behind a desk and never leave the location. You as a franchisee need to be out of your location more than you're in it. Your manager once they have a good team in place, they probably need to be doing more of the same, or you have a marketing manager that does that for you. But I think the last thing that I would say on this topic of like what successful franchisees do, they're not in their location. They're not in the business performing the task, cleaning the couch, doing the tax return, putting on a roof, performing a spray tan, doing the waxing. They're not doing that. They are really working on the business, but they know everything about that business that makes it work.
I've owned, I don't even know how many, 60 businesses, 70 businesses, a lot, too many to count. I've never once like been the actual worker ever. But I always was involved in understanding how it operates. And I was the chief storyteller with every single business, right? And I was involved in like getting to know the employees really well. But I never actually like operated like in the business. It was impossible because I've always owned multiple businesses at the same time. I can't physically be at multiple businesses at the same time. But like one thing, like one other note that I want to make before we turn the corner here is when it comes to this like community activity, which I don't love that term. I think it's like it really is kind of like networking, but it's being the chief storyteller, right? You kind of have to understand that like you need to be consistent with your behavior in that category, okay? Because that's a longer brew. In other words, if I go out and I go to an agency today and I say, I want to spend $5,000 on generating leads for my business next month, there's an agency that can probably help me do that. And I can pay money and in return get a lead or two or lots of them, right? And that's kind of the short game. And I want to be consistent with that as well. But what we're talking about is really kind of building the brand within the community in the sense that like this is a longer play. This is the compound effect, right? So this is doing things with repetition consistently over time to win. So let's say that like we talked about like potential referral sources with other like-minded businesses that have other like-minded customers. I pick a number, like I'm going to network, I'm going to reach out to 10 businesses in a month, in a week, in a day, whatever it is. But whatever I've identified as who I want to network with, and whatever identify what that number is going to be, and then that frequency, whether it's daily, weekly, or monthly, I'm never going to stop doing that because I'm going to keep on with that repetition and that consistency. I last week I was at a conference with my wife, and the keynote speaker was Jay Shetty, pretty good talker, pretty good speaker. One of the things that he said that really resonated with me was repetition creates rewards. And I took that and I put it into my iPhone notes. That's why I was just looking down at my phone just a second ago because I'm like, I want to nail this because it was like, wow, that really hit. And that's what we're talking about here. When you are doing community events or networking with other like-minded businesses or whatever in the community means for you and your brand, you have to do it consistently with repetition.
As long as we're name dropping, when I was with John Maxwell 2 weeks ago, he said something very similar. Same thing.
Yeah.
Consistency compounds. He's like, "Consistency
Hmm.
compounds." He does 5 things every day. He's like, "These are the" he's like, "Everyone
Yes.
should have 3 to 5 things they do every day without fail." And I asked him, I said, "How long did it take you to come up with those 5 things?" I think he said, like, 6 or 9 months. So he tried all of these different things to figure out what he could do consistently. And so he does these 5 things consistently every day because consistency compounds. So same thing Jay was saying, but in a different way. But that's absolutely true. You were mentioning something, Jeff, how you are working on the business, not in it. I don't think I some of my business I worked in some of my non-franchise businesses, but all my franchise businesses I have not worked in. I never did a tax return, and we did, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of tax returns probably, and there was always somebody doing that. But I remember in the heyday of me being a new franchisee, I was working 60, 70 hours a week. And, and that's just the way it was. So even though I wasn't working in the business, I was working on the business. There was so much to do. And then it got to the point where I really didn't need to be around. I have friends that are in businesses now where they were in it so much from the beginning, like we were with Sola. We were in the trenches with Sola for the first year, and then it was like 2 hours a week after that for the next 4 years. But we put in our dues, and so just because you're working on the business doesn't mean you're not putting in a lot of hours, or doesn't mean you're not working hard as you're building that equity. So I thought that was an important, like, little tidbit to mention. Did you work hard, or were you always just, like, sitting have did you always have a second home in Florida on the water?
No, man, I've been a grinder for sure. Like, but for me, it's like I don't think I could be a lot of value like being in the locations of the
Yep,
businesses that I
yep.
own. I don't, and that's not the highest and best use of my time, anyways.
No,
But
it's not the highest and
but
best
but
use of I shouldn't be the fa franchisees should not see their highest and best use of their time sitting behind the desk or doing the thing, whatever the product or the service is. Like, franchisees
right.
should not think that's the highest and best use of your time.
But I always was a student of the game. Like I knew how everything always worked, right? Like I wouldn't just like hire somebody and then be like, okay, the franchisor is going to train you. I don't really know how to do it. Like I knew how to do everything that needed to be done in any location, in any part of my business. Even though I wasn't the physical labor that did it, I knew how it had to be done. And I could see like I could tell the difference between that could do it right and somebody that couldn't.
Well, I think we hit on some things, not the basic stuff of follow the system, go to training, read the playbook. I think we left people with some practical things that they should be doing. And I think so if I had to frame it right now, you've got the franchisees that are thinking, "That's great, guys, but you don't know how hard my franchise or is to work with." And I would just say, doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter right now. And I say that because I've said that to myself when I've been a part of franchise systems that were not so great. Not saying it in a nice way. They were not so great. I'm like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I have I have a business, and if it's going to be successful, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it work or walk away so I can focus on other things that are more successful. And then you got other franchisees out there right now that are thinking, this is it. This is how I've built it. And they're probably thinking about this first group that I mentioned. They're like, I know some of my neighbors and some of my friends are in this other group, but they are just saying, yes, Eric and Jeff, this is what it takes to be a successful money making, equity building franchisee. Any last thoughts from you?
You got to know how your business operates. Like I have a couple of names in my head right now that I'm thinking about that really run, they're franchisees of systems and they are like exceptional. They're running a really well-oiled, profitable machine. And in every one of those instances, not one of them is an quote unquote owner operator, but they know how to build teams, they know how to manage teams, they understand the metrics of their business, They understand how to acquire customers, and they're constantly monitoring all the activity of their business. None of them are like literally like in the trenches operating it, but they know everything that's going on. They have a command center. It's called their computer or their phone, and they can dive into their computer or their phone at any given time and take a look at what's going on and be able to diagnose things right away just by looking at their operating system, because they know how it operates. That's the first thing. You have to understand how the business operates if you're going to hire somebody to operate it for you.
Yep. I would, that's a good point. And I think we'll leave it with this. You mentioned monitoring activity. I think more franchisees need to do that. Then that's where it goes into what Jay said and John Maxwell said about repetition and consistency. You
Yeah.
need to start with activity. That's visiting businesses. That's whatever that looks like for you. There should be levels of activity that your team or you do every day, visiting businesses, reaching out to customers, calling the dead lead list, what a current customer list, reviewing whatever it is. You just need to do some of these things that will eventually have an impact on your business. All right, Jeff, that was a good one. Thanks for listening to the Franchise Secrets podcast. Links to everything can be found over at franchisesecrets.com. And if you want my help with anything from starting your own franchise to growing your current franchise business, please visit scalablefranchise.com.